innocent, their birth is not a crime. Yet many children find themselves in prison doing someone else's time. They pay the price for parents whose children were unprotected until they grew into parents whose abusiveness went undetected. And it's not like the signs weren't there, the children clearly reflected pain. It isn't hard when you're looking to see hatred's ugly stain. But we develop the ability to ignore it. It isn't a problem we choose to own. It doesn't matter to us if a child is hit with a boulder or a stone. The details of someone's dirty laundry is not something we care to know. Unless it's just for gossip, it's not a place we want to go. We only call it a crime when the child eventually turns up dead. It's only then that we start asking, was it something in their parents' head? All those that survive the abuse and end up addicted on the streets are considered morally weak because they couldn't survive their own defeat. We hold up the few that make it, saying, if they could, why can't you? But we never stop to understand an individual's point of view. We ignore the role of temperament in a child's ability to be resilient, and the constant exposure of stress that erodes one's chances for fulfillment. We believe in one size fits all, and that all types of abuse are just equivalent. We believe that every child in an abusive family receives the same amount of belittlement. And I'm sure this serves a purpose that no doubt alleviates our guilt and gives us more excuses to overpopulate the prisons we have built. So the children raised in homes of abuse and degradation will find themselves in adult prisons with very little variation. Their only crime was to be born into a family that would beat them, so that they would grow up to be adults in a world that would defeat them. There are no second chances for those who never had a first. They'll drink themselves to death because they cannot quench their thirst. The abuse will continue eating because they cannot fill the hole. The heroin addict will give up, ever searching for his soul. The gang member will smoke his courage from a joint made out of sherm. The crack addict with burnt lips will pass the pipe that holds the germ. Jonesing for a fix, the IV user accepts the needle-carrying death. The crack user for far too many years, a worn-out woman takes her final breath. With a rage that can't be quieted, one boy will kill another. Another child is born with a heroin addict for a mother. Standing with a pregnant belly, the prostitute sells herself to get her drug. Just another child who grew up with a family she couldn't ever hug. Passing on despair as if it were just another genetic trait. Growing up in a life mostly defined by others' hate. Cutting scars into her arms, a young woman is labeled an attention seeker. She's reaching for some love, but it's with disdain that others treat her. The hospital kicks out an 18-year-old because she tried to take her life. But now you have to ask yourself just who is holding the carver's knife. A mother gets the news her young daughter OD'd in another city. It's only the tragedy of those who've had a good life that ever gets our pity. Ottawa has over 1,500 addicts, but their deaths won't make the paper. A teenager prostitutes herself, but what would be her father that would rape her? But he will never pay for his crime, it's his daughter that is the criminal. She will pay for the attitudes of others whose concern is only minimal. She will become just another one of those who are disposable. One of the walking wounded, bleeding from wounds that aren't reclosable. Young men so blinded by anger that they cannot see the damage of using lives of others as a way for them to manage, unable to entertain the thought of compassion because it's something they've never known, left to struggle in the chaos of the violent family in which they've grown. In a dog-eat-dog world, they've had to fight for every inch of their survival, and when a seed is never sown, you can't expect to bring out a new revival. It's the nutrients to grow the seeds that just weren't there for so many people. In a society that ignores the cost of making efforts that are only feeble. The counselors underpaid, that work for hours no one pays for. The kid suicidal in the emergency ward that another counselor stays for. The doctor that charges $25 to write 4 lines inside a letter. She gets paid enough money so you think she could treat her patients so much better. And how can we stem the tide to keep so many of our youth from dying? And then I lose my camera and I can't stop myself from crying. It's the way I keep my sanity, taking pictures of what is beautiful. It allows me to go to work each day and continue being dutiful. But I don't make enough money to replace what I have lost. And I keep wondering, despite my efforts, why do I have to pay the cost? While others make $150,000 a year with not a quarter of the demand. And when we try to find more funding, no one seems to understand. We're caught in a pit of quicksand, forever going under. And still I don't really get it, so I look around and wonder, when will this world grow a conscience and make up for the little that it does? When will the children left abused get something better than what it was? When will addiction counselors get paid enough to afford a decent break? To be allowed to recoup enough to deal with another family's ache? We're living in the sludge of society's indifference, fighting every day after day, hoping that we can make a difference. Sinking into despair when another kid just turns up dead. Trying to deal with society's rejection that swirls around inside my head. Trying to speak up so that the unheard voices will be heard. Knowing no matter what we say, no one ever hears a word. Unable to walk away because of the little help there is. Unable to just ignore how really unfair it is. Caught inside a quagmire, my shoes are sucked down by the mud. And when the telephone rings, it's my heart that starts to thud. Have we lost another one? Has another youth just died? How many times I've hung up the phone and just looked around and cried. But that's not important to the larger picture because few people have a heart. It's far easier to dismiss the beaten than it is to admit we play a part. It's far easier to look after number one than to care about another. It's far easier to blame the child who grew up with an abusive mother. This is outside the world in some dark and grievous place, where we try to help the lonely deal with the sadness that they face, where we try to convince them that not everybody will kick them to the dirt, that there really are some people who care that they've been hurt. Hollow words when the hospitals kick them out and slam the doors, when they're left sitting in shelters with their arms covered in sores. It's an easy step off the ledge that carries them to their death, where there is no one there to bear witness when they take their final breath. Just a counselor somewhere asking, was there more I could have done? But then the system doesn't ever respond. There's few battles we'll have won.